Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we are here with Jan and Tony Esposito, and they are going to be talking about how are we navigating the college scene under this time of COVID-19. So I will let them tell us what we can expect, not only for our juniors and seniors in high school, but entering freshmen and students in college as well.
Barbara, it's so nice to have us on and to continue our conversation. Again, my name is Tony Esposito, and this is my partner, spouse, Jan Esposito.
Hi, everybody.
When we first agreed to do a presentation, to which we have been giving presentations at the library for a number of years now, we were all set to come down and do our normal presentation. And then just like every other student out there and every professor and teacher, we're in an environment right now where we have to kind of tailor how we present ourselves now. So what we did was we kind of changed up our information a little bit and wanted to talk about exactly what is on people's mind as far as parents, as far as students, in the time of COVID-19. So we'd like to start our conversation on what college will look like come this fall. And Jan and I are almost daily on conference calls, Zoominars, GoToMeeting, virtual seminars with administrators of colleges, financial aid officers, counselors, to try to get a handle on what our students and parents can expect come September. So I'm going to throw this bomb at Jan and say, on a scale of 1 to 15, how many different scenarios have we heard about in the last 30 to 45 days?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It seems that colleges are talking to each other, but each one has set up teams of administrators to kind of figure out scenarios of what could happen. I would say that almost every college wants to open in the fall. They really want to open, but how they're going to do that is the complicated part. There's a bunch of different scenarios that they're all coming up with. Things like
let's go with the perfect scenario.
Oh, perfect scenario is let's just open up. Everybody comes in the end of August. We do our orientation, all the fun things that we do, and everybody moves into their dorms and they go to classes and everything's great.
And so the only thing that we've missed is basically admitted students days and that great show that colleges put on, and we're so and we've been to so many of these events, and they're just glorious. So that's what colleges want to put forward, is that this is plan A. But behind plan A, Jan, is what?
Well, plan B, C, D, E, F. There's so many plans, but what we've been hearing is, maybe hybrids. Maybe if they can't start right away, they might start online and then move students in after. Or also the other way around, bringing students in and having all kinds of arrangements for safety, such as taking everyone's temperature. You can't come to class unless you've taken your temperature. Some schools have started having an app that every student has to log into every morning and give an update on how they're feeling, if they have fever, if they're coughing, whatever, and report it into the app so that they don't go to class if they're feeling sick. And then some schools are having the scenario of A dorm, a specified dorm will be the quarantine dorm. And if you need to be quarantined, you're going to go into that dorm.
A number of colleges are sharing their space so that, you know, in cities, so to speak, like Boston and New York, colleges are going to be sharing dormitories so that students will only be in singles. There'll be no doubles and no triples.
Right.
And as Jan said, there'll be a quarantine dorm. So they have so many scenarios to put parents, administrators, also professors. Because Barbara, we were just talking about one of the unknowns is how do professors feel about coming into this kind of environment? If you think about the average age of a professor, it might be well over age 50, maybe even in their 50 to 60. And will they be comfortable coming into an environment where potentially they could be at risk for this virus? So that's one thing that's out there, and administration is trying to calm that down and make sure that professors are comfortable with that. And one of the good things is that we're all going through a training process right now. So students that are doing online work and doing Zoominars and the like are getting kind of used to the technology and ready for any scenario that might come up. So if they do open up a campus and then some of the classes have to be online, there's not going to be any downtime, so to speak, because we're all trained.
Right, and the colleges are getting much better at doing online learning as well, so they're advancing that, and they know that they might have to do that. Another interesting thing is that some colleges are looking at shortening the semester and hopefully getting the first semester in by Thanksgiving.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I hate to say it,
right,
but there may be a new surge of the virus, and colleges are aware of that. So they don't want to send kids home for Thanksgiving and then have them come back to campus after being with their families for a big holiday. So they're either going to try and finish up the semester by Thanksgiving or have in class, imagine this, like everyone on campus stays on campus from the moment they come in to Thanksgiving. They don't leave, they don't go home. And then they go home for Thanksgiving and they finish up the semester online. So that's another option. And that, you know, there's all different scenarios and we don't know what's really going to happen.
And colleges have been preparing for these scenarios. And if any of you in the listening audience have put a student through college already, you'll see how you understand how organized colleges are on one side, and on the other side how it feels as it's haphazard and there is no plan. But believe us, the best minds at these universities plus their consultants have run every scenario and are in touch with the federal government and the CDC and their states. So let's talk about the SUNY system, or the New York State system, or the public system in Pennsylvania, or the public system in Virginia. These systems are a little bit different than, say, your private university, such as NYU, Pace in the city, Cornell, Columbia, Hofstra, in that public universities can't move as quickly as private universities can. And let me give you a scenario. We're very familiar with Hofstra, and I'm sure you all are very familiar with Hofstra, a private university. They can move on a dime. In other words, the president and the board of trustees can decide to close a dorm or open a class or go remote in one day. But in the SUNY system that is governed by our governor and the chancellor of the system, they're not as nimble and they can't move as quickly as that. So you're going to find in New York State, whether your student is going to, say, Buffalo State or Plattsburgh or Brockport or Farmingdale or Binghamton or Stony Brook, in each one of these environments, the coronavirus is at a different level. But colleges in this system cannot individually decide what to do. It's basically going to come down through New York State. So it's almost like an all or no scenario. So thinking about that, if it's all or none in New York State, it's probably all or none in most states. And what we're finding is in the out-of-state public universities, Jan, check me on this, but by and large, we're hearing that they're going to be open.
Yeah, they're all coming up with ways to do it. We haven't heard that there's any public university that's definitely not holding classes.
Right.
I mean, it's all up to what really happens, but the plan is that they're holding classes. I just wanted to take a step back and see if we can't really do a survey on this, but we would like to know of the people who are on this call today, maybe in the chat box, there's a little chat box on there. If you could put in and let us know the year of high school graduation of your students, so we know if we're talking to parents of graduating seniors or juniors. But if you just go into the chat box and just type in the graduating year, then we'll be able to see who you are and what might be important for you.
Great, a number of you are answering. Great.
Okay, so we have juniors and sophomores.
Perfect.
Anybody else have anything? You can put that in the chat box. Okay, so it looks like we don't really have parents of high school seniors or graduating seniors.
That's great, because so we can tailor this more to looking in our crystal ball and letting you know what we see in the future of 2001, 2002, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull up on the screen some of the things that we were going to talk about. Some of these questions we can talk about that would pertain to younger students.
So what would colleges look like in the fall for a 2001, 2002 student?
2020,
2021, 22 student, if indeed a hybrid type education delivery system is used, such as brick and mortar living in dorms, but also online classes. So one of the things we've been hearing from our parents that we're working with is, should I defer enrollment? Should I take classes at a local community college? Should I take a gap year? If my education is going to be online, maybe I'll just go to Nassau Community College or Suffolk Community College and take a year there to get my general education classes, and let the virus kind of ferment a little bit more, rise to the top, and then I can certainly transfer, for the sophomore or junior year. In fact, Jan, we've heard from a number of the students that we're working with actually today, that a number of them have done what?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
They have actually decided to go to community college.
Oh.
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, because, the question is, should you pay for online classes at an expensive university when you're living at home and getting on your computer? And that's something that, students are going to have to figure out. But I want to talk a little bit about what your students might be, or you might be wondering if you have these younger students, a number of people have been asking if this class of 2020, this high school class of 2020, defers and does not go into college right away in the fall, or they stay home and they take online classes at community college or something like that, is that going to affect next year's admissions? And will there be enough room for next year's graduating seniors, or will it get filled up with the people from the year before?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been hearing from college administrators that that's a question people are concerned about. And what colleges are saying, to kind of put your mind at ease about that, if you were concerned, is that colleges are hearing a lot of parents asking about deferring enrollment, but they're not actually requesting to do it. And colleges are also planning on limiting the number of students that they allow to defer. So they don't expect that there's going to be any problem accepting the class of 2021 onto their campus in 2021. You're not going to get shut out, is what I'm saying. So that was kind of something that people were asking about.
Another thing they were questioning is cost-wise, and the return on investment, the value-wise. If a student goes to community college because of this situation, and receives an associate's degree, which is 62, 64 credits, and goes to transfer to, let's pick on NYU, so to speak. Will NYU accept all of those credits in lieu of COVID-19 and only charge, 4 semesters, 2 academic years, and that student actually goes out into the workplace with an NYU degree and basically only paying for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a scenario that colleges are embracing.
Well put. And I think even before COVID-19, colleges, they'll take transfers, but if you have that strategy of, well, I'll save some money and start at community college, that is a strategy, but you really have to work with the college that you want to transfer to and make sure that they will accept all those credits. Because as Tony said, are they going to give you that expensive degree from their 4-year college and you only spent 2 years on their campus? They might require you to do some additional work, whether you do it over the summer or winter sessions or things like that. That's something that you need to check out.
We're also getting a number of students that are enrolling in summer classes. Mm-hmm. And one of the conversations, one of the thread of conversations is, how does financial aid, how does money, scholarships, need-based grants coming from the college, the federal government, the state, how does that respond to tuition costs in summer programs? Now, each college is a little different in how they look at that. So one of the things that you want to think about is, if you are going to take a summer class, say stay at home and go to community college, and go through your academic year and load up on some credits over the summer, most likely summer programs are not covered by traditional financial aid. One of the things that you can do is you can compress your academic year, traditional academic year, of 2 semesters. That financial aid, you can compress that or open that up for all 3 sort of semesters, which would be your fall, spring, and then summer. But it's the same amount of money. So there is no extra resources, so to speak, for summer programs. Mm-hmm. And that has come up a number of times. And one of the problems also is that if you get caught in that kind of situation unaware, and you're looking to borrow money or finance that, there is no federal financing for summer programs at this time. Will it change? You know, anything can happen in lieu of what's going on now, but presently summer programs are pretty much funded by students and parents directly. Now,
Yeah.
will the overall cost be different for the fall for your 2021, 2022 students? This is really interesting because this is the first time that colleges are being presented with a value proposition. In other words, if you don't give us our traditional, 15 credits in a residential experience per semester, will you discount the cost? So I was just talking to a student today that got a refund, received a refund from Fordham University. And Fordham University gave them a $5,000 housing refund. That's one scenario. And another student a couple of days ago finally received their refund housing from University of Michigan, and University of Michigan gave them $1,500. So you can just see where housing, room and board is pretty much the same cost across the United States, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 to $18,000 a year. But each college is doing it a little bit differently. So if you think about it, there is some room for colleges to refund money if a student doesn't stay on campus and use the dining hall the whole time. But it'll be thousands of dollars. It's not going to be 10,000 or a full refund.
Yeah.
So I think colleges are getting used to giving money back, which is a great thing for parents. Because once that starts, then that opens the floodgate to kind of like appealing or working with colleges when it comes to being affected by this virus.
Yeah. So I think that since most of you have younger children, maybe we'll go to the next slide.
Yeah.
And these might be questions that might pertain more to your younger students. I know there was, on the last slide, there was a question about, will colleges accept AP courses?
Let's talk about that first.
Yeah. And I did want to address that because some of you may have had students who took the AP exams this past week or the week before, and there were some problems with it. Hopefully your kids didn't have problems with it, but some people had problems with it.
I think it was somewhere about 30% of the test takers
could not submit their scores. And they're being given the option by the College Board to retake the test in June, and everybody's up in arms about that because who wants to take an AP exam again if they didn't have to? What the question is, will colleges accept the AP courses or the AP exams, given the fact that the exams are different? They're not the same. They're shorter, they're online. So it's really going to be up to the college and how they decide to do it. And we were recently on a webinar with the Dean of Admissions from Princeton University. And what she was saying was, really when it comes down to it, and this is kind of a good way to think about admissions in general, when it comes down to it, what colleges are looking for is to know that the student coming to their campus will be able to handle the work when they get there.
Jan, just say that again.
Yeah, that is.
And the word is context.
Yeah,
right.
They're going to look at a student in the context of who they are, in the context of their high school, in the context of this virus and what's been going on and their opportunities for testing. So if a college feels like this student can handle the work and they're not concerned on whether or not they're going to fall behind once they get onto campus, then that's a good candidate for that college. So whether or not you did well on an AP exam, they know that, you know, these were difficult times, the testing situations were different.
Jan, are colleges trying to fool students and parents and trick them and set up an alligator trap, so to speak, and make them walk through quicksand? What, you know,
Yeah,
help us out here.
That's a great question. And I think there is a feeling out there that colleges are trying to trick you. Like I've had students say to me, you know, well, what am I going to do? You know, I could only take the SAT one time, and you know, now they're going to look at me and say, you know, it wasn't good enough, and now they're not going to accept me. You know, they're not, you know, they understand, they get it. They get what you all have been going through, and they're going to make every accommodation that they can and try their best to evaluate a student in the context of, again, who they are, the high school that they go to, the kinds of courses that they take. These admissions people at colleges, we talk to them all the time, they're real people and they're caring people. That's why they're in this profession, and they want students to thrive and be successful.
Think about how you were disadvantaged, if at all, by the current environment. Now, it could be due to living and being educated at home. It could be a parent that is under a tremendous amount of stress because of working from home. It could be a job loss. It could be technology. You want to start to think about how were you impacted? One of the conversations is resources. What resources are available to you, and how did you utilize those resources? And we were just talking with a number of schools about the Common Application and the COVID-19 question.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about this.
So Jan, you want to just elaborate on that?
So as many of you know, the Common Application is a generic application that many, over 500 colleges accept the Common Application.
That website is?
commonapp.org.
Right.
And
when did it go through the scenarios?
Okay, so the application for rising seniors, those are our current high school juniors, we'll call them rising seniors. Over the summer, August 1st is when the Common Application opens up online.
So here we are in May.
We're in May.
June, July, August. Yes.
Right, you can start applying to college August 1st. So this generic application, as many of you probably know, does have a personal statement where the student is asked to write an essay that is personal to them. And that's not changing. It's the same as it always was. But what will be new this year is an optional essay question that will be on the application, asking how this coronavirus has impacted you, if at all, and is there anything you would like us to know about how you were impacted? So it's not necessarily a test question like, you know, tell us what you did during your quarantine.
We thought that was.
We thought that's maybe where they were going with this. You know, that
it's like prove to us that you did something really great with your downtime, but that's not what they're after.
That's not really what it is. It's more, as what Tony was referring to before, what kind of resources did you have? You know, do you have one computer in your home that you're all sharing? What did it make it more difficult for you? Did you have internet problems that you couldn't access what you needed to access for classes or for testing? Is there, you know, a loss of job in your family and money was a problem? And, you know, there's all kinds of issues that people had to deal with during this crisis. Health issues, maybe someone in your family was sick. Those are the kinds of things that colleges want to know, so that, again, that word context comes up. So in the context of what you were going through during this time, during this second semester of your junior year or your sophomore year, what was going on with you that we should know about?
And it's important for younger students to actually journal this.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Could you talk about that?
Yeah, you know, it would be a great idea to start journaling, to keeping records of this time. This is a really unique time, and you know, not that it's required at all, but it certainly will help a student, I think, reflect back on what they went through, what they were feeling.
Let's think about in March. I mean, we're older than a number of you, most likely, and we were just kind of going over ourselves. Let's go back to March 15th. What was it like March 15th? Personally, I've kind of forgotten already what that was like, and it was probably because it was horrible, or I'm not sure. But if you would have journaled that and kept it daily or weekly, you would have a rich treasure trove of information to which to call on in the next
Right.
3-4 months or year, because that, as the country comes back together, that stuff is just going to get fuzzier and fuzzier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the kind of rich material that can really help a student write a great essay. So think about encouraging your students to do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So what are you doing with your time?
Colleges may ask that.
Yeah.
What did you do with your time?
What did you do with your COVID time?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And from our discussions with college admissions counselors, they're not looking to see, did you, you know, start a nonprofit and have this amazing experience where you raised money for healthcare workers, and not necessarily that. I mean, that's wonderful if you did, but maybe you learned how to cook. Maybe you helped in the garden. Maybe you had time to read a novel that really impacted your life.
I'll give you one experience that we're having. Our daughter-in-law started to talk about baking and making a sourdough starter with her friends. And we looked at each other and said, well, if our daughter-in-law can do this, certainly we
can do that.
We've been trying to do this starter for 3 weeks. We can't get it going.
But we're working on it.
We're working on it. All right. So we could write a nice little personal statement about the trials and tribulations of creating a sourdough starter and possibly make that into a great conversation.
Yeah.
So Jan, what else is happening in college applications?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about testing. So we all know that these SATs and ACTs have been canceled. So many of them have been canceled. The June ACT has not been canceled yet. It very well may be. I believe May 26th is when they expect to have a decision. And it may be a state-by-state decision. It may not be an overall across the country thing. And also the SAT, I believe May 26th is when you can start signing up, start registering for the, you know, the SAT. They're going to add new test dates. So starting in August, the SAT will be given once a month all the way through December. So August, September, October, November, December. So if you didn't have a chance to take those tests in the spring, you should have an opportunity to take them in the fall. It doesn't mean it will happen, but that's the plan. But colleges know how difficult this has been on students. And, you know, I'm sure your kids have been prepping for tests, and then the test doesn't happen, and now they have to start all over again. And, you know, do you stay with the tutor? Do you keep working with the tutor? Do you
Let's
work
talk
on your
about
own?
a business opportunity. Not a business opportunity, but a way to discount a cost. This is really interesting because we've been contacted by a number of tutors, SAT prep, ACT prep companies. And from a business standpoint, their business is way down. So they're actually looking for clients or students.
Yeah.
And knowing that we've had a number of students that we're working with actually renegotiate the fees of some of these SAT preps companies and tutors and really knock the costs down. So if that's something that you're comfortable with doing, I'm just letting you know that there's an opportunity to really reduce that cost.
Good point. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about test optional, because that's come up. A number of colleges, a large number of colleges, have announced that they will be test optional for this coming year and the following year.
So let's go through some of those definitions. Test optional.
Yeah. So test optional means that the college is giving the student the option of reporting your test scores or not reporting your test scores. And the reason that the newer ones are doing it, because there was always a group of schools that were test optional anyway, and they had their own reasons for not requiring tests, usually because they don't believe that, you know, taking a test one day and getting that score is representative of how you will perform in college, and they want to look at other things, a more holistic approach. The colleges that have been requiring test scores that are now test optional, the reason they're doing it, and what they're doing is going test optional for a short period of time, 1 or 2 years, to kind of test the waters and see what that's going to be like. And they're doing it because they know that students have not had the opportunity to take the exams. So what does that mean? What does it mean to you and your student? You might want to report your test scores if you've done well. If you have not done as well as you feel you should have, and you don't think that that score is representative of who you are and the kind of work that you can do, you have the option of not reporting your scores. But be aware that they will be looking harder at other things. They'll be looking at your transcript and the grade, the kind of courses that you took in high school and the grades that you got in those classes. Did you challenge yourself?
Let's go back to that term context and
Right.
talk about your college application in the context of your high school.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you may know that every high school has something called a high school profile. And it would be a good idea if you get a hold of that high school profile. It's a document that you can all have access to, and it describes your high school and how many students there are, what kind of, which AP courses are offered in your school. Maybe it's IB classes. What is the average or the mid-range of SAT scores? How many students go to four-year colleges? This is a profile of the high school. And when your transcript is sent to a college, along with it goes the high school profile. So there's that word context. So when colleges are looking at your transcript, they're looking at it in the context of your high school. So if you took, you know, AP courses and they were available in your school, they understand you, okay, you're a competitive student. If you didn't take AP classes, but they are given in your high school, well, now there's a question, why didn't you take AP courses? Maybe you can't handle that kind of work. Those are the kinds of things that they're looking at. So be aware that if you choose not to submit your test scores, they will be looking at your transcript more carefully. They will be looking very closely at your essay, your personal statement, and what that says about you. They'll be looking at letters of recommendation from your teachers, from your counselor. They'll be looking at your extracurricular activities. These are the things that colleges look at anyway, but they just won't be looking at your test scores.
Jan, let's talk about working with a recommender in the time of COVID. Let's talk about an academic recommender from your high school, and also a recommender that wasn't at your high school.
Yeah, you know, most colleges require a letter of recommendation. They almost all require a letter of recommendation from your guidance counselor. And then 1 or 2 academic teachers who can talk about your work in the classroom. It's a little bit harder this year, I think, because maybe you didn't get to know your teacher that well because you were at home.
So here's where students have to step up a little bit more. It's easy, as you can see from, you know, the webinar that we're on right now, is to be a passive listener or passive student. So one of the things that colleges that our associates are looking for is a student that steps up. In other words, shows a little bit more grit, a little bit more determination, and reaches out via technology to make them known to a teacher. So what are some of the ways that you can do that? We were at a conference once, and because we go to conferences all the time, where there's always speakers, there's keynote speakers, and one of the keynote speaker was the president of the Girl Scout Society of the United States. And the first thing that she did was she said, okay, so everybody raise your hand, right?
Yeah, that's a Girl Scout initiative. Raise your hand. And
so how does one raise their hand in the era of COVID-19? As you get, this is a good question. It is open for your creativity. We don't have all the answers. This is brand new. So I think the more inventive, the more intuitive, the more entrepreneurial type of student out there is going to find ways of raising their hand and getting in front of recommenders, whether it's the guidance counselor or it's the your high school English or math teacher, or, you know, bio teacher, and also recommenders that are not in school, which are going to be a big consideration now because education has now moved into the home. So we were talking about how does an other recommender, so to speak, somebody who's helped with the education at home, what insights can they give to the admissions committee that typically wasn't available prior to this?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's considered an outside recommender, which many colleges will accept. So, you know, think about who in your world who's not in your school could write something really impactful about.
Yeah, do you basically have another third party that is helping with your education from home? And we're seeing that, yes, this is happening more than ever before in the year of COVID-19 because people are staying at home, and therefore you have advanced students, upperclassmen, you have other people around that are helping with education, and they could be potential recommenders that could share some light on what type of student you are. Anything else is going to be happening with college applications? Let's talk about videos, and let's talk about
social media.
Social media. Let's also talk about if you're a performer, whether it's performing on the athletic field or you're performing arts person, whether it's visual arts or musical arts or design. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So you'll want a college to know what you can do. So videos videos will be a big deal, I think, right? When you think about performing arts, auditions were usually pretty much in person, but now auditions will be virtual, or a recording. You'll send in a recording. Same with an athlete. You'll send in a recording of, your performance on the field. Of course, it's difficult because your team is probably not playing, but, colleges will be very happy to accept those kinds of things. So any records that you have of things that you've done that are on video.
We've had a number of students that are into theater arts, interested in musical theater, and they're looking at this as a tremendous opportunity because of that fear of having to nail an audition, getting on a plane and going to Chicago or going to California or whatever it is, going to New York City and nailing that audition and seeing 25, 30 other performers in front of you and just being stressed out. Now you have the opportunity to prepare for that and really put together a really great presentation.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. And and your students can also think about putting together some kind of, maybe not social media, but like whether it's a web page or somewhere where they can put together a collection of information about themselves, about their skills, about their talents, showcasing their talents. And you can provide a link to that web page on your college application, and then they can see all that you've accomplished. So that's kind of a nice thing to do too.
So just to shift a little bit, we were thinking that colleges, as far as the enrolling class for 2020-21, would be under enrolled. In other words, a lot of students have decided not to go. We were thinking that this is directly going to be impacted by COVID-19, and it's almost to the opposite.
Yeah, in fact, we were reading that Cornell University, what Cornell did this year was, most colleges have a wait list. They accept a certain amount of students, and then there's a wait list, and they see who accepts and who says they're going to come, and if they still have room, they'll take students off the wait list. So this year, Cornell thought, well, not everyone's going to come now because of the virus, and people aren't going to want to travel. And so before May 1st, which was the deadline that people needed to send in their deposits, they were accepting students off the wait list because they were concerned that they weren't going to get their full enrollment. And this year, they got their full enrollment, and they invited students off the wait list, and now they're over enrolled.
They're over enrolled.
I mean, they can handle it, but it wasn't what they expected.
So say that again. It's not, colleges are getting what they're not expecting.
Yeah.
It's
like
different.
surprising. It's surprising what's happening.
And as consultants and as parents and as students, we're trying to look in our crystal balls and figure out what's going to happen. This is a time then maybe we should all put aside our crystal balls and not try to anticipate what's going to happen, but just try to put our best foot forward. In other words, just
be flexible.
And be flexible and say, this is the way I thought it was going to happen, and it could be the exact opposite, and most likely will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and thinking about evaluating students and how are students and parents evaluating themselves? Well, let's pick on parents. We're parents. Let's say, how are you evaluating your student in the era of COVID-19? Are you saying that, my son or daughter is lazy, they have so much time, all they're doing is social media, they're not really putting the effort in? I wish I could see you all raising your hands or nodding your heads up and down, but we can tell you from the people that we work, students that we work with, by and large, a number of parents are feeling that their students aren't putting 100% effort into this. So I'm going to throw this out there and say, look at what they're going through.
Yeah.
Yep. You might not see the effort that's being done, but they have eyes behind their head. They're watching you, they're watching their friends, they're watching their friends' parents, they're watching their teachers. Their observations are so much more intense now than the prior class. So you might be feeling that my son or daughter is not working up to their potential, but look at the distractions that they have to deal with. So we were just talking to a number of other consultants about how are employers going to look at this class or this series of classes that have come through the COVID-19 era, and what disciplines have they come up with to deal with this. So this is all brand new, and these are all conversations that are going on. So just, is there any other any other evaluations that you want to bring to the table as far as what colleges are looking at? Because we were talking about demonstrated interest.
Yeah, that's been a big question, is how do I demonstrate interest, that I'm interested in a college, but I can't go to the campus, I'm not in school, I can't meet with the admissions counselor who comes to visit my high school. How do I demonstrate interest? And that's a really good question. It's not that easy, but what colleges are doing is they're working very hard to find ways to connect with students, potential students. They are creating events, virtual college tours, webinars, one-on-one Zoom meetings with students, all these kinds of things that are available to students. And that is a great way to demonstrate interest. By logging into a session that they advertise, give them your name, register for an event. Now the college knows you exist. Now the college knows you're interested. And when you receive an email from a college, respond to it, sign up for something, go to their website and sign up for their newsletter. A lot of admissions offices are writing great blogs. You can sign up to receive their blog, sign up for their social media sites. You have to do everything virtually, but there's a lot that can be done. And
Jan, let's talk about the difference between demonstrated interest, in other words, demonstrating an interest in a school, or demonstrated knowledge of that school.
Yeah, that's a great difference. And again, in the context of, let's say you're applying to a school, there's a school that you love, and you've been demonstrating all this interest and signing up for everything and contacting them, and but now your application, you fill out your application. What colleges are looking for, beyond just having, you having shown it an interest in the school, is, have you learned anything about this school? Can you tell us why this school is such a good fit for you? And that takes a little bit extra work. but that's demonstrating an understanding of the school. So as your students are doing these virtual tours and learning about the schools, you know, they should be collecting information and be able to say, oh, I love this school because they have this great program that I'm really interested in. And I checked out this professor who's doing this research in an area that I'm fascinated about. And those are the kind of things that you really want to be looking at and be able to demonstrate to the college that you're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you.
Let's talk about technology and how colleges are capturing your online presence. In other words, how does a college know that you've been to their website? How does a college know that? This is fascinating, guys.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Yeah.
There is technology out there, software, that enables colleges to see who's been visiting their website. There's technology, there's a program called Slate. You don't need to know about it, but it exists. And they can track if, you know, from your email, if you've been to their website, what part of the website you went to, how many times you went. You know, they can track all of this, and a lot of schools are doing that. So it pays to be active, right?
Yeah.
We can continue talking. We have a little bit more time, but if any of you have a question or something you'd like us to address,
Opening the chat room is open.
We'll open the chat room. You're welcome to type something in if there's something you'd like us to address or answer or talk about. Please feel free to do that.
A number of parents have been asking us questions about the cost of college. Should I be investing in a college savings plan, a 529 plan? Should I take my money out of the stock market? Should I become more conservative in lieu of what's happening with companies on the exchanges? All of that kind of questioning. Should I save my money and potentially think about financing some of the cost through federal loans or private loans, because sometime in the future there might be a loan forgiveness program for students, and those type of things. So that is such a fluid environment. It's changing daily. So just to let you guys know that on the financing side, as far as saving your money and using federal loans or private loans or financing that, interest rates have come way down, almost 2 percentage points. Interest rates have come down on federal loans. So I know loans aren't necessarily a good thing, but in lieu of incomes going down and the value of people's, you know, your personal, maybe your college savings plan or something like that, I want to, you know, put you at ease a little bit. There is, through the federal government, unlimited financing, and interest rates have come down to historically the lowest point it has been in over 15 years. So that's available, and it doesn't seem to be changing too much in the future. So just rest assured on that one. So do we have any?
So there was a question about, is there a deadline for the colleges to go test optional? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has set a deadline. I don't know who would set a deadline, but colleges, you know, are every day they're kind of changing. So if you heard yesterday that the school has not gone test optional, you probably want to go to their website and just check again. you know, we get notifications every day from different colleges. I just got one yesterday, I think, or the day before, from Fordham University that they're going test optional.
Let's talk about deadlines. Deadlines aren't as hard and fast as they were last year.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot more openness and negotiation.
Flexibility.
There's a lot more flexibility for parents and students to explain their situation. So deadlines are, you know, it's like we were in a conference once when the dean of admissions said she just loves deadlines and she loves the feeling of deadlines whooshing through her hair.
No,
what did she say?
I love the feel of them whooshing past me,
Exactly.
like missing deadlines.
Like,
just,
yeah, so
you know.
deadlines are not hard and fast as they used to be. Things are opening up a lot more.
But, you know, as far as deadlines, you know, from what we're hearing from colleges, they plan to keep the same deadlines, let's say for early action, for early decision. November 1 is a typical deadline, and they don't really want to change those deadlines, but they might require your application to be in by November 1, but they might wait. If you tell them you're taking a December SAT or ACT, they might wait for that. So everything doesn't have to be in by that date, but you still will have to meet that deadline in terms of your sending in your application. So that's.
Let's talk about the most competitive majors there that are out there right now, and what we're seeing in healthcare professions as far as nursing, pre-med, veterinarian, dentistry. Let's talk about business, and let's talk about engineering and how those majors are being impacted by COVID-19.
Well, those majors.
Let's talk about easy ones. Engineering, it has not been impacted.
You mean are less students?
Are less students applying to engineering programs?
No, they're still very competitive.
They're still very, very competitive. Let's talk about business.
Pretty competitive.
Pretty competitive. We haven't
seen the top schools.
We haven't seen a change in that. But let's talk about health sciences.
Well, nursing has been very competitive for a while now.
Now, what's happened with COVID-19? What the conversation from parents and students?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some people, you know, are compelled to help others and really want to be in the business of healthcare.
And some parents are saying, I don't want my.
Yeah, some are scared of it.
Some are afraid of it.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, again, you always get in trouble when you're looking at a crystal ball, but we're thinking in the future, because prior to COVID-19, nursing was one of the most competitive majors you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But we're thinking possibly in the future that might be loosening up a little bit more.
I also wonder, and I'm not sure, if colleges will be compelled to expand their nursing programs because of the need for nurses.
And I'm sure, like you've heard, that certain medical schools have graduated students early.
Right, so that they can go out and work.
So I think there's tremendous opportunity when it comes to healthcare, so to speak. And another thing that has come up is public policy and health policy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, public health.
Public health, yeah.
The area of public health, which a lot of people are, you know, we talk to students about careers all the time, and we mention public health, and a lot of people are like, well, what's public health?
Well, now we know what it is.
And now you think about epidemiology and how diseases travel through populations and how to deal with it. That's public health, and that's a really important area.
And on the backside of that, that's a joke, is political science.
Yeah. Yeah, how public policy in general and how that is impacting everything.
And believe it or not, I mean, we've had a number of students that are stepping up and starting to talk about journalism, where in the past, if somebody said they want to be a journalism major, you know, a parent or, you know, people on the street would say, well, there's no money in journalism. But due to the fact that everybody is watching the news, whatever channel it is, students are starting to become more interested in journalism. And to give you guys a plug to Stony Brook, they have an excellent journalism
They
program.
do have a great
You might think
journalism.
of Stony Brook as a health science program, but they have an excellent journalism program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
So we had another question, and even though you mentioned the colleges got the enrollment numbers they were originally anticipating, do you have a sense if students are going to go to those schools if they are still in a remote or online format for the fall semester?
Stuart, that's a great question, and I'm going to attack it from the money side of it. I think colleges, the majority of them, have the ability to use money to make their class.
Great point.
Okay, so this is brand new.
Mhm.
Well, not brand new, but we've started to see over the years, over the different years coming up, where there's been a number of less high school graduates to help colleges make their classes. We've seen a number of colleges come up with academic scholarships, grants, specialized programs in order to help their enrollment. So, Stuart, that's a great question. I don't feel that colleges, the most competitive schools or the second tier or third tier schools, are going to have a problem. Here's where there will be a problem is the smaller schools.
Yeah, small liberal arts colleges are hurting.
Yeah,
they really are. And
we just were talking to Wheelock. In other words, there's a set of schools in Boston called Colleges of the Fenway.
yeah,
Yeah,
a group of small colleges that are a consortium, and they share a lot of resources and facilities together. And Wheelock College was, it's an education school,
mm-hmm.
and it was taken over by Boston University.
Right.
And that's sort of, and now that's their school of education.
This is going to happen.
Yeah, the smaller colleges are going to be
absorbed.
Absorbed by larger universities. But I don't think that colleges are that worried. You know,
No.
Hopefully we answered your question, but I don't think that they're that worried about enrollment. I think they're going to get the enrollment that they want. But as Tony mentioned, colleges are being, I wouldn't say more generous, but they will
More understanding.
More understanding of people's financial difficulties, and if they can help, they will. And if they think that a student is not going to be able to come for financial reasons, I think that they will work with you.
But as in the Girl Scouts, you must raise your hand.
Yeah.
And let a college know. And how you do that is after you apply. Okay, after you're admitted to that school and receive a financial aid award. So here's one of the dilemmas that parents are facing is, should I apply for financial aid? And over the 20 years of Jan and I practicing, as educational consultants, by and large, 99% of the students parents we work with, we force them to file financial aid forms. And here's where it's really coming to prove that was a great strategy. In these ups and downs in the economy, as we can see right now, if you don't file financial aid forms, then it's difficult to appeal to a school because they don't know anything about your finances.
Right. And how do you tell them that now things have changed when
Right.
they didn't know what things were before?
Yeah. So if you get one thing out of the financial side of this brief talk is to complete financial aid forms, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and you might as well do that.
And I just wanted to touch on, one of the points we wanted to talk about was, building your college list if you have a junior or a sophomore. And will your list start to change during this time? Possibly.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of families are thinking maybe we don't want our student to get on a plane. Maybe we want to be able to drive and get them if we need to. If there's an emergency, they're shutting down the school, we have to pick up all their stuff and get them in the car.
Should you have a COVID list and a non-COVID list? Yeah, possibly. Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
But one of the things that we like to talk about is the aspects of looking at choosing a school. And we like to look at a good academic fit, a good social fit, a good cultural fit, and certainly a good financial fit. And that's sort of, you know, from what Tony was just talking about, you want to look at schools that are going to be affordable, that will work with you, that if you have a financial need, they will meet that need. Or maybe if you don't have a financial need, is it a school that will give you merit aid? And how do you figure out if you would get merit aid at that school? Well, you need to evaluate the student and evaluate the college academically. And if it's a strong student at the top of the class and at above the mid-range of that college and their SATs, ACTs, GPAs, that's a strong chance of getting a scholarship. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but you know, a scholarship is for scholarly work. So if you are a strong student, you're more likely to get a scholarship.
One of the feelings that we're having is that this is the year of the discounting. In other words, colleges realize they've reached a price point where they're starting to get pushback from parents. And one thing that we're seeing is now with COVID-19 is like, should I pay the same price for online education as for brick and mortar, you know, residential? So all of those things, I think colleges are very, very aware of price, and that opens up the opportunity for parents that are applying to the correct school as far as academically, socially, culturally, to bring that financial piece to the table and help.
Good point.
Any other questions? We're done.
I'm going to just put up our contact information. If you have any questions that you think of after this session and you'd like to contact us, please feel free to give us a call or email us, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
And we're going to turn to Barbara and see if she has any questions.
Well, I just want to say that was very informative, and it really and truly painted a different picture of what most parents are used to. And I think for the parent as well as the child, they're going to realize how much more work is going to go into, you know, the college journey in a different way, in a much different way.
In a different way, I
Yeah,
agree.
good point.
You know, because parents are used to helping, you know, their kids maybe fill out the application or taking them on the tour. But, you know, like you said, it's going to take a lot more than that right now. And I think the parents need to be aware and help their child navigate the college websites, the college webinars, like you mentioned, perhaps getting in touch with, you know, someone in the college in a department that they may be interested in and follow through that way. I mean, so there's going to be a lot more online stuff for the college process than ever before. But you gave everyone, hopefully took a lot of information away. Great. And hopefully if there's any other questions, they can reach out to you. And Absolutely. We want to thank you very much for this.
So, we want to thank you for having us on.
Thank you, Barbara.
We can't wait to see you in person again.
Yes, I know. And I'll have to show you pictures of my grandson next time.
Yes, we'll show you pictures of our daughter-in-law and maybe our sourdough starter.
Will do. I'm going to end this Recording right
Take care,
now.
everyone.